Welcome to an episode of Siddhartha in a Car. I've been in Sedona, Arizona for about a week now, 7 or 8 days. It's kind of a bittersweet experience. It's so beautiful. It's one of the most amazing places in the world. And I had the fortune of living here for 7 years, almost over 7 years. But most of the people that I know are gone now. And the real beauty that I wanted to revisit is the people and experiences and adventures that I had in Sedona. I was fortunate enough to see a couple of them, but today I'm going to be talking to a friend of mine that we met in Sedona over, 20 or 25 years ago, maybe more. And it's just great that we're still in touch. And her name is Catherine LaTarraca. What can I say about Catherine? Catherine is a multi-talented, multi-genre, multi-talented woman. When I met her, she was doing a lot of opera. She sings popular music, jazz music. She's a composer, songwriter. She's amazing, and I feel honored and blessed to have her on this program because, again, this is what this journey is all about. It's the people that inspired me. It's their stories, and this is why I'm doing this series. Siddhartha in a Car is about going back to those places that inspired me and talk about those people that inspired me in those places. So it's again, perfect blessing to have Catherine with us today. So welcome, Catherine.
Thank you.
By the way, Catherine is not in Sedona. Catherine is in Connecticut, helping her mom and readjusting her life and a lot of family business right now. So again, double fortunate that we can do this talk. Feels just like you're here at Sedona. So let's get started. I have some questions for you so that the audience can get to know you a little bit better and know your journey, what inspires you, and those things that are important to you. So what inspired you to become a singer?
Wow.
Is there a pivotal
I don't know.
person?
Well, I was always singing when I was a child. My mom says that when I was 9 months old, I stood up in the crib and was singing Happy Birthday in the middle of the night.
I can see that.
So I don't know. People ask me that all the time, like, who in your family and where did it come from? I don't know. Back in Italy, I think I had a great grandmother that liked to sing, and certainly family members liked music a lot. But I was just always trying to get on the stage when I was little, and any time when I was in kindergarten, they had the girl was supposed to do some kind of solo in the program, and she got sick and was absent, and I said, I'll do it, and I jumped in, and that was the beginning of me being not the first choice, but always the one that could save the day.
Oh man. So it started. You start your career as a stand-in, basically.
Yes, at 4 years old in kindergarten.
You got a break at 4 years.
But I kept asking for voice lessons for so long, and I kept being told I was too young. I started dance when I was 4, and I had an excellent dance teacher that came out of studied with Martha Graham and had a really professional studio. And even though we were small children, we were taught how to conduct yourself on stage, how to keep going when things happen, like your little hat falls off or whatever. And I learned a lot that I'd even teach my students today about how to carry on and not be distracted when things don't go perfectly on live performance.
Okay.
So I had good training there. And then finally, when I was a young teenager, they allowed me to start taking voice lessons.
Started 4 years old then.
Yeah.
You knew then that you wanted to be a singer at 4 years old, and you started singing.
I knew I wanted to be a performer. I didn't know if anybody would let me do it, but I was always wanting to be on the stage because that creativity and that form of expression and music really spoke to me. My mother also tells me that when I was around 4, I guess, they had one of those toy pianos, those little ones, those little wood ones.
Yep.
And she told me that one day I was playing just a really pretty melody, and she asked me what it was. And I told her, I made it up.
So you were composing at a young age too. Composing, singing at 4 years old.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, so when we met a million years later, I remember you telling me stories about your time in the United States Army. And it used to, I couldn't quite comprehend it because you were telling me you sang opera in the Army. Like, opera Army, opera Army. How does that work? So I was wondering if you could share just a couple of highlights of your experience in the Army singing and what that was like and what you did and how that worked out.
Well, I when I went into the Army as a singer for the Army Field Band and Soldiers Chorus, what was good about that job is even though I was trained classical, we sang all kinds of styles. So we did evening shows that were Broadway for the general public, and we did high school shows that were choral and classical, and I got to be an opera soloist. That was good. And then in the mornings when we were on tour all the time, we did high school shows that did whatever was top 40 at the time, plus 50s and 60s music, rock and roll shows. And so that's where I started to experience doing other styles and learning how to use my voice to accommodate other styles. But singing opera in the Army for the band was, it was part of their programming. But singing opera in boot camp, that was a different story. My drill sergeants used to make me sing something opera before they'd allow us to go in and eat
Really?
at the end of the day.
Oh, wow.
Funny. Yeah.
That is funny. Yeah, I remember you telling me you'd be literally loading rockets in the morning and singing at night. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, but we had some really good experiences on tour with that group. We used to sing every Easter Sunday. We used to sing at the Hollywood Bowl in California.
Oh, wow.
The Easter sunrise service that was televised nationally. And they would fly us out to sing there and release the white doves during the service. And so we had some good things.
Wow.
We toured Europe and all over the United States. So I saw the country, sang everywhere. I had the opportunity to sing Sound of Music and My Fair Lady. And so I was fortunate to be a featured soloist a lot, and that was a good experience.
Amazing. How long were you in the service?
3 years.
3 years. What rank?
At the time, it was called specialist something or other. I can't even remember.
Specialist.
It's like a staff sergeant rank because I had a master's degree in music.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And where did you get your master's degree, by the way?
That was Boston Conservatory, and my undergrad was New England Conservatory Music in opera. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, what inspired you to move to Sedona?
Well, let's see. Sedona. I was living at the time in Washington, D.C. I was singing at the Kennedy Center with the Washington Opera, and it was the beginning of the Gulf War because it was 1990. And I was going to rehearsal for the Magic Flute or some opera, and you park underneath. They're parking the underground, and when you come up into the Kennedy Center big lobby. And one night I came up for rehearsal, and there were police and guard dogs, bomb dogs, sniffing dogs, all through the Kennedy Center. And I thought, oh, I think it's time for a change.
Really?
This isn't really where I want to be.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, at the time I was working at a travel agency, and I had the opportunity to visit Sedona, and I went with a friend. And any major move I've made has never felt like I made a conscious decision, like it was logical, like I got a new job, so I moved there. I did that with the Army, but that was the only thing. It was more like I went to Sedona and I felt like I was supposed to be there. And I had a lot of resistance because it didn't look like the picture of what I thought was my life. I liked the big city and my friends and all the activity.
Well, welcome to Sedona. I think that's almost everybody's story that I've ever talked to is definitely my story. I just came out to visit one Thanksgiving and turned around. We packed up everything and moved there. 7 years later, moved out. So I call it the University of Sedona. It's just, there's definitely an invisible curriculum that so many people take, and then it's time to go. Yeah, it's just amazing. So within the variety of genres that you do, composer, songwriter, musician, singer, what is it that you want to portray to your audiences? What do you feel you want to say and leave audiences with when you're performing and even when you're writing?
Well, I think the main thing, I play a lot of piano now too. I accompany my students and other singers. Um, I play at, religious places, churches and synagogue, where I run choirs. And I think the common denominator is to just lift people up. I think that I sort of go by myself. When I go somewhere to listen to music, I'd like to forget about whatever's on my mind or bothering me. And I want to be moved. I want to be uplifted. I want to be transformed. And I feel when you perform music that you kind of take the audience somewhere and you take them on a journey to experience something. And when you're done, you return them to themselves and let them kind of integrate whatever they had experienced. And there's so many hurting people in the world that I feel like anything that music can do to help hurting people hurt less is really valuable. So whether I'm playing piano music or I'm singing a song or I'm directing a choir, basically what I like people to feel that they're hearing and feeling, spirit through whatever it is that's being done. Like I call it bringing heaven down is what I like to do. And the music or the form, piano, singing, whatever, choir, it's just the tool. It's not really about the singer or the song. It's about how the performer can connect to their own connection so that heaven can come down to those that are listening for that moment. I mean, that's kind of how I feel it.
No, that's beautiful. And so you're saying then when you give this feeling out, you're actually experiencing that feeling for yourself at the same time.
Well, you can't give it out unless you're having an internal real experience.
Exactly.
The thing for me, to be in all honesty, is I plug into that really naturally and easily when I'm performing or doing music. I have trouble doing that in my everyday life. I struggle with that and I live outside of that, and that causes all my problems. But when I'm doing music or performing or even teaching, I plug in very naturally, and there's an elation with feeling that nothing else comes close to.
Well, this is exactly why we're talking, by the way. Everything Catherine is saying, I have experienced with her, because I remember, I don't know, I forget their names. We went over there. They were husband and wife. They had back-to-back grand pianos. And you were singing something. I don't know. And I remember just like, heart attack. And it's like, and then every time I've heard you sing, and this is why I want to talk to you, because you are the consummate artist in that way of giving those feelings to people. You can't help but be moved when you're singing and doing your art. You'd have to be dead, no pulse. So that's why I wanted to talk to you, because you are definitely one of the people that inspired me, in your commitment, your authenticity, and your art. I mean, that's what I love seeing in artists, is the real thing.
Well, thank you. When I think for me, I'm a person that feels things very deeply and very intensely, and it works really well in performing and music. It's kind of hard in life sometimes. So I was this child that nobody knew what to do with because there was just too much emotion. And when I got into opera, which was just kind of one of the things I was taught through my training, it was the most deep, passionate, emotional vocal form that I'd ever experienced. And I cannot get any deeper than an operatic piece of music.
I remember the windows rattling when you would sing. We shared a house together, folks, and when Catherine would sing and the windows would rattle, I haven't heard anything like that since I used to live across the street from the airport in Burbank, California. It's, oh my God, is that an airplane? No, it's Catherine, and that energy and that incredible power.
But the thing is, I think what happens with me is that there's permission to feel, and it's acceptable to feel at that level in that format. And so that's when I got into it, I found like, oh my gosh, this is where I can be my full scope of emotional being.
Right.
And it's okay because people like it when I'm up here and not having a conversation.
Right. It keeps you out of jail, keeps you off of drugs. Exactly. This is what art is, you know. It's a legal way to express these deep and ugly and beautiful feelings, you know. And so
that was another thing. I never did drugs or anything or smoked because I was so paranoid that I would just wake up one day and never be able to sing again.
Right. Well, if there's one thing you could leave for aspiring singers, musicians, composers, you know, from your experience, from everything you've done, what would you say to somebody coming up at 4 years old or maybe a little older, you know, in your shoes when you were then there?
Well, I would say to try everything that appeals to you and remember that art is messy, and pretend you're a child that's playing with finger paints and it's not going to be perfect. You don't go from, you know, doing it badly to doing it great. You go from badly to a little bit better, and it's incremental. I would also say that if you have supportive, creative people in your life, that's great. But if you have what I call creative monsters, then you need to find a tribe where where it's acceptable to explore and try things. Because I have singers that improve with me who are not like singers professionally. Some of them are professional painters, writers, that other professions. And vocal work, it improves you so much in your life because it makes you work on yourself. Yes. I mean, when you work on your voice, you're working on your life because your voice is who you are. And so you don't have to be always going into it as a profession. In the United States, music is kind of relegated to those who are like, you know, the celebrities. But if you go to European countries, South American countries, music and dance it's part of how people relate to each other, and then they find more of themselves that way.
Beautifully said. Exactly. It is working on yourself, whether you're professional or not. You know, I call it the the authentimeter. I invented this term the other day. You know, like you're playing a passage or singing something. Is it authentic? Is it really coming from that place that I want to say something, or am I just repeating something I heard? So I put it on the authentimeter. Yeah, that's what I want to say.
That's really good, because I tell my students all the time, you have to sing with conviction. You might have learned your words and your notes, but when you deliver them, you have to be a person in that moment who wants to say that. So you have to have an opinion about what you're saying. Singers are using lyrics, and they have to be authentic, like you say, and that's part of the art form. If you don't have that life experience, you have to come up with something that makes it real for you, so that you can trigger your listeners to have a real, authentic experience.
Absolutely. And that itself is an art form, you know, because a lot of people out there singing covers, and you can't believe it. You know, you just can't believe it's just a cover.
I tell my students all the time, you know, listen, and if you don't want to mimic how they're singing, how they're using their voice, but learn to discern between what they're doing musically that you might want to lift or borrow, and not trying to make your voice sound like their voice. You want to sing with your voice and maybe borrow some of those musical gestures.
Absolutely. Well put. Beautiful. So, you know, performing is intense, can be intense. You're a teacher, you're a singer, all these things are very, very intense. As wonderful as they are, you need time to relax, chill out, regenerate. What do you do? What do you do to just like, man, I got to let this go for a while. I got to chill. What do you do?
I stay away from people.
Yeah, well, no kidding. I do too. What's that look like?
I was born for lockdown.
There's a song. I was born for lockdown.
I mean, I'm telling you.
I was born for lockdown. That's great. She was born from lockdown. Lock her down.
I mean, today especially, I can't believe how busy I am, and I'm just like in this house by myself. But no, I have to come apart because I recharge my batteries by plugging into my guidance and into my personal space. And I'm more of an introvert that way. The other thing externally that helps me is being around water, the ocean, the beach. I don't get that opportunity that much, but that kind of deflates me and helps me get back to neutral.
Yeah, great. Do you have water out there near where you are now on the East Coast?
Well, yeah, I'm closer to the ocean here than I am in Sedona. That's true. Right. That's true. So it's starting to get warming up here. So.
Okay. This is wonderful. So any upcoming projects or visions, that you want to work on or that you're thinking about creating, or, what's next?
Well, I'm really not sure. Everything's kind of a blank slate because all of the freelance work I was doing before lockdown is either suspended or gone now. Mm-hmm. And currently, I'm not in Sedona. I'm in Connecticut, where my mother's in memory care, and I'm taking care of family business. And actually, I'm doing some of my best singing because I sing to her when I visit her.
Oh, wow.
And in the past, when she didn't have dementia, she would have thought that was silly. But now she responds to the music and her whole mood just changes and calms down. I sing songs, Frank Sinatra and things that she knows and grew up with. And she knows the words, and her whole demeanor just changes instantly. So I feel like I'm doing some of my best work by singing to her during this home stretch of her life. And, I'm just in the moment with that. And I think if there's something more to be created beyond the pandemic, beyond me being on the East Coast and beyond her passing, it'll just be revealed to me.
Yeah, that brings up an interesting topic. We don't really have time to get into depth, but I just wanted your comments on it. I went to see a talk by Oliver Sacks, who was a pretty renowned neurologist and a music in neurology, and he talked about one of his most severe Alzheimer's patients couldn't remember anybody in his family, but he remembered every line of every song he ever sang. What about that? Why is that?
That's because music bypasses the brain and goes right to the heart. So the music is going through a clear channel, and the details might be in part of the brain that are affected. I'm not a medical person to explain it properly, but that is why music that was from early years is retained, because as the dementia person slowly loses and dissolves the most current and goes back further, those things stay.
Interesting. The further back they go, the more pure the thought and the memory.
Right. So that's why I sing to her. She was a teenager in the 40s, and so I sing her a lot of big band 40s music, and her feet start tapping and she starts moving, and her body just is like, it's like a nutrient that her body's just absorbing.
Well, I think we've both seen a lot of that playing in retirement homes. Yeah, seen a lot of things in retirement homes, but people would just jump up, or they would tap, or they would start singing. They would literally come in depressed to be staring at the floor, and then the music, it would just lift them right up. It's just. And
then the other piece of that is, I hope that we as musicians who are doing this music, which is good for your brain, will have longer, healthier lives because of our, daily association with the art form.
Absolutely. Keeps me going. Well, Catherine, this has been awesome. This is exactly the idea. I'm so happy to catch up with you after all these years. And it's just like time hasn't passed. I remember we've had just amazing discussions when we were together for hours, just hours and hours and hours.
31 years ago. It was
Is it 31 years? 31 years ago. Wow, look at that. Where does that go?
And I wrote my first song at that house. I mean,
Love
it was
Star.
so beautiful. Love Star. Yeah, that was just so beautiful, that whole experience where I dreamed a melody. I had never had that happen before. And then I got up and played what I was hearing in my head, and I didn't even know what I was doing. But you were inspiring to me because you were so inside of that whole thing.
Yeah.
So anyway.
That's great.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. So we're gonna play some of Catherine's music, on the way out. But I just wanted to thank you all for listening. Thank you, Catherine, and stay tuned to Siddhartha in a Car. I don't know where I'm going next, but you'll find out soon.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining in, everyone. If you'd like to stay in touch and updated about future programs and events, please check out my website and leave your email address. If you'd like to support this program, my music, workshops, and other events, see the link below and check out the benefits you'll receive by becoming a patron. Meanwhile, I wish you maximum creativity, power, and love. See you next time.